Welcome to another Stu's music quiz, coming to you this week from the year 1973. Classic year that produced some very great music and some very great people as well, as you can guess. That's the year I emerged into the world. It's a cracking year for music, as I say, and there's plenty for us to get going with. So remember the format, 30 questions on a variety of different topics, different ideas from this year. As I say, I'll go through it pretty quickly, so feel free to pause at any point, take a bit of time over it, especially the more cryptic questions as we go along. Let's start with a few trivia questions. First of all, on the 2nd of April, released which two classic albums? Red Hot and Blue. Little clue there for you. The 2nd of April, two classic albums that Capitol released. On the 3rd of July, who said, "Everybody, this has been one of the greatest tours of our life. Of all the shows on this tour, this particular show will remain with us the longest. Not only is it the last show of the tour, but it's the last show that we'll ever do. Thank you." Famous words there. Who said them on the 3rd of July, 1973? And number 3, a bit of a briefer question, this one. We all remember that there was the oil crisis of 1973, which caused the three-day week, amongst other things. But what predicament in the music industry was caused by that oil crisis at the year 73? What predicament, particularly in the music industry, was caused by the oil crisis? Okay, the biggest sellers. Right, I'm going to do the biggest sellers of the UK here. So the 5 singles that sold the most in the UK in 1973. What I've done for you here is I've given you the initials, first of all, of the song, and then of the, and a little clue to the side there to help you along. So look at number 1, Terre Toute, I'm Really Still in Prison. Number 2, EL by SPO. Think of Dutch Detectives. 3, WH by P&L. Gary Lineker. Obviously, these do rely on you being of a certain age, but there we are. Number 4, BB by S. Think of Bob. And number 5, COFDN by S. Think of Bad Spelling. That might help you. See how many of those you can get. The biggest sellers. As always, the biggest sellers in the UK. It can be quite disappointing when you get a year of classic music and see what ends up as the biggest selling song. It was also the biggest selling song in the US, by the way, the number 1. There you go. Right, so let's have some album covers, shall we? Starting with this one. Album cover. This was the 4th studio album by an American rock band. The link, the clue being family. Yeah. The front cover, the name of the album, and the band themselves. And it was recorded after the death of 2 band members in the previous 2 years. Not a lucky band. See if you can get half a mark for the album cover, for the albums, itself, half a mark for the artist. That was a bit challenging. Next one might be a bit better for you. No clue needed for this one. Half a mark for the name of the album, half a mark for the artist. Number 11. What about this one? This was the 6th studio album by an American shop rocker, you might call him, and was his biggest seller at the time. Hit number 1 in both the UK and the US. But what is it? That snakeskin cover. Half a mark for the artist, half a mark for the album. And in a very different genre indeed. This is the, I can say without a shadow of a doubt of being contradicted here, the most popular album by a very well-known folk singer-songwriter, released in '73. What's the album? Who's the artist? Okay, 4 classic albums there from '73. Let's have some lyrics, shall we? Let's move into songs rather than albums. Okay, all you got to do here is complete the lyrics for the song. Now, it's not that complicated. All those words are the same. So make a stand for your man, honey. Try the what? Put your man in the what, honey? Get him while you what? Complete the lyrics. You don't need the song. Just complete the lyrics. I'm sure many of you remember the song. It was #1 that year as well. What about this? All-time classic from '73, this. I would very much doubt there's anyone out there who's not going to spot the song, but we get a missing word. You walked into the party like you were walking onto a yacht, your hat strategically dipped below one eye. Your scarf, you had one eye in the mirror as you watched yourself gavotte. So there you go. No prize for getting forgetting the song. But what is the missing word? No bonus marks for getting who it was about. Otherwise, we're only giving a bonus mark to one person, really, aren't we? Anyway, number 15, try this one. Again, another great song, but can you get, you'll probably recognize, but can you get the missing lyrics? You know you can't hold me forever. I didn't sign up with you. I'm not a present your friends to open. This boy's too young to be singing something. What's he too young to be singing? It's one of those ones where I know some people listening to this, into that, those words, and of course into a high falsetto as well. Number 16, last lyrics one for you. Slightly different type of song. Touch me in the morning, then just walk away. We don't have tomorrow, but we had something dropping in the background there. Touch me in the morning, then just walk away. We don't have tomorrow, but what did we have? Okay. Let's get back to albums, shall we? Back to our cryptic album. This is, of course, where I give you a visual representation of the title of a well-known album from 1973. All you have to do is decode it. For example, number 17. This is the bit where you may want to pause and take your time a little bit more, look a bit closer. And then try number 18. And maybe even number 19 here. Again, it's a visual representation of the title of a well-known album from 1973 by a very well-known artist. And lastly, and perhaps most obscure, number 20. I don't mean the album necessarily is obscure, but maybe the clue is. Okay, 20 out of 30 done. It's time for me to shift the setting on my microphone. Ready for you to listen to my piano playing. Now, This week it's named that riff that we're going for, and it is a glam special. So all four answers, all four examples here are glam records. 73, really a year of them, wasn't it? I'm going to from four glam songs, and you just got to identify that's all. Great if you get the artist as well, but it's the song I'm looking for. So listen carefully, because it is only the riff that's coming along. Of course, as usual, the other obstacle is, as well as the fact it's being played on a piano rather than a guitar, which can be a problem, it's me playing it on the piano, and I am no pianist. So let's start with number 21. This is the easiest, first of all. Get you in nicely to begin with. Now, if you're sitting there clueless on that one, I'm afraid the next three might be very hard for you. Okay, number 22. Massive hit in the US, particularly this one. There you go. What glam hit is that the riff from? What about number 23 then? Let's have a go at this one. Again, a little bit easier than the previous one, maybe. There. Mega song there. Number 23 there. Interesting thing is I always play these in the key of the original. Don't know why, but I do. And all three of those are in the same key. How about that? In fact, this is 24. It's pretty close to the same key. Okay. Have a go at this one. And there you are. So I think we can all agree 21 and 23 maybe slightly easier than 22 and 24. But there we are. Right, let's readjust the microphone back to the setting for talking rather than playing. Now, here's a new one. I haven't done this before. This is the classic album round, okay, in which what I'm going to do is on the next page, you're going to see a representation of an album. It's not the cryptic kind of thing that's there. It's just lots of images and words and whatever, and together they should give you a classic album. So again, this is another one you may want to pause, take your time out, have a look at the words, have a look at the pictures. What classic 73 album, and in my mind, the best album of 73, I have to say, is this. And there's Samuel just have seen a ton of that, and that will be the lot for them. Let's try it again. So same, okay. Have a look at this. What classic album is being represented here? Okay, so I'll say feel free to pause, take your time over it. Every little thing is a clue there. Okay, we're on the home run now. Number 27, Beatle versus Beatle. As in most of these early 70s years, we had releases from all four Beatles in 1973. Now, here are four releases from the four Beatles, one for each of the people there. I'm being deliberately obtuse there because at least one of these had more than one release in 1973. But anyway, just taking these four, Living in the Material World by George, Mind Games, release of that year, Ringo, surprisingly enough by Ringo, and Red Rose Speedway by Paul and Wings, although pretty much Paul. Only one of these went platinum in the US. And although sales figures are a bit dodgy, a bit hard to get hold of, also pretty much certain that it was the biggest selling one in the world of those four, certainly in that year. Only one of those albums went platinum in the US. They all went gold in the US. One of them went platinum in the US and sold more than the others. Which one? You might at the same time like to have your own little game of which order should they come in. But there you go. Maybe I'll reveal that in the answers. Okay, number 28. It was also to go from, no, it's not sublimely ridiculous. That's unfair, really, but a very different type of thing. 28 was also quite possibly the year of the Osmonds. Osmonds everywhere there were. So the question is, which Osmonds track sold the most in both the UK and the US of these four? We had Long Haired Lover from Liverpool, from little Jimmy Osmond. We had Let Me In from the Osmonds, the whole lot of them. We had The 12th of Never from Donny. And we had Paper Roses from Marie. Which one of those sold the most copies in the UK and the US? Okay, one for you here. Let's get some Elvis in. We got all the big stars here in this quiz, haven't we? Here's a bit of Elvis. His concert, Aloha from Hawaii, was broadcast by satellite to over 40 countries. Massive event at the time. But which country was the last to see it of the countries that did see it? That is a major. Only April, because of its clash with a major sporting event. It was in January. The concert. It was in January, broadcast by satellite. But of those countries, which country was the last to see it because it clashed with a major sporting event? And finally, number 30, the film version of which musical, which was filmed in Israel, was released this year? I think I agree we've dealt with a variety of 1973 music all the way through. I hope you've enjoyed doing that. I hope you've got your answers. Let's find out how you've done, because here come the answers. Let's start at the beginning with that very first question about Capitol releasing those two classic albums, Red Hot and Blue. Well, we were the Beatles towards the end. It's the Beatles at the beginning. It was the Red and Blue Beatles albums, 62 to 66 and 67 to 70. The introduction to many, many people who were born after the 60s or don't really remember the 60s from being too young. Many people's introduction to the Beatles, those two albums were both compiled instantly. He chose those singles. There's a little bit of controversy. I mean, he only used Beatles originals, but that's fair enough. The Red album had no Harrison tracks, even though it includes the whole of Revolver and others there. So, didn't go down so well. But the Blue had compositions by all of them. Even Ringo got one on there, which may or may not be a good thing. Anyway, right, so that was number one. Number two, who said all this? It's the last show of the tour, but it's the last show that we'll ever do. Thank you. It seems like, well, so what? Some retiring for this. But remember, this was the big deal. This was Ziggy retiring. David Bowie as Ziggy Stardust. And I remember at the time, a lot of people didn't know whether he was talking about himself as not just Ziggy. He was retiring Ziggy, but they thought it might be him. So many urban myths about that night that have never been confirmed at the Hammersmith Odeon. Apparently, only Mick Ronson and Tony DeFries, his manager, going to do it. And I've heard tell that he only told Mick Ronson as they were waiting to come on stage. Not the greatest warm-up ever, was it, that? He didn't even tell Angie, he didn't even tell his wife. Bit harsh, really, on the rest of the Spiders from Mars to be standing on stage and suddenly hear you're out of a job. But there you are, never mind. The predicament in the music industry caused by the oil crisis, it was a shortage of vinyl. And as a consequence, a very large number of releases were delayed, I gather, until the new year at the end of 73, because there just wasn't the supply. Now, these biggest sellers, let's have a look. What's the first one? Terror Toot. Yes, this is I'm Really Still in Prison, of course, is a line from it. This is Tie a Yellow Ribbon Round the Old Oak Tree by Dawn. In that wonderful year of music, that was the biggest selling single in both the UK and the United States. There you go. The story of an old con coming home, unsure whether his wife's still waiting for him, to see if she'll tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree, and there's 100 of them. Sorry to spoil the end of the story there, but that's what happens. There we go. What about the second one? Huge hit in this country. I'm sorry, any US people here, I have no idea what's going on with this. This was Eye Level by Simon Park Orchestra. And the clue, of course, Dutch Detectives, was it was the theme to Van der Valk, a very popular detective series of the time. Yeah, second biggest selling single. Now the Gary Lineker clue, again, you have to be of a certain age and watching. This was probably most famous to a lot of people from being used in a Gary Lineker advert, the very first Gary Lineker Walker's Crisps advert, when he was returning from Japan, and everyone in Leicester's waving to him, whatever, and then he sits down at a bench and steals a boy's crisps. So it all started again. It was Welcome Home by Peters and Lee. Originally a French song, apparently, translated into released by Peters and Lee after their success in Opportunity Knocks. Went to number 1 and then never did anything much again. Number 4, the Bob Holness clue, surely for most people would get you to remember that is Blockbuster by Sweet. Of course. Another Chin and Chapman song. Chin and Chapman are everywhere in this as we go through the answers. They had a heck of a year, a heck of a few years, really, and then disappeared completely from trace, really. Of course, it's best known, I suppose, for that riff controversy. It came out just after Gene Genie by David Bowie, which has exactly the same riff. I mean, all sides claimed coincidence, but it's quite clear that the riff comes from a Muddy Waters song, classic blues riff. And actually, if you listen to it, of course, it's also used by the Doors earlier in Roadhouse Blues, and it could well be where one got it from. But who went? For instance, who knows? But Blockbuster sold more. And what about the band? Generally tells you it's Slade, doesn't it? This was, of course, Come On, Feel the Noise. Come On, Feel the Noise. This song, not that you really want to know this, but this was a song that was number 1 on the day I was born. I remember Oasis doing a very amateur version of it recently. But there we go. Big, broad Slade song in a year that they had, I think, 3 number 1s this year. Okay, let's move on. The album covers. Who was this family that had a family album with a family picture on there, because this was one of their family? This was the Allman Brothers Band with brothers and sisters. Actually, their biggest selling album with the best known song, Ramblin' Man, on it as well, out 73. I'm sure I put this in just to make sure some people got some marks here if you were struggling here, just to be friendly and to recognise this album from 73. It's not my favourite, but of course it's just one of the great albums, isn't it? Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd. What about this one though? Well, if you've got a big enough TV you're watching it on, you might have just seen engraved around the baby's face the answer to it. I didn't cover it up because I thought most people aren't going to see this. This, of course, is Alice Cooper. Billion Dollar Babies. Yes, as we said, his biggest hit at the time, with No More Mr. Nice Guy, which became his theme afterwards, and I Want to Be Elected, which of course was re-released in a new version with Mr. Bean for comic relief many years later. But let's not take that away. It's a cracking album, really cracking album. What about this one? Onto the folk singer. This is John Martin and Solid Air. I think you can safely say his best known album there. Loved by many. Right, what about his lyrics? Let's have a go at those. This, of course, is Canning the Can, Susie Quattro, another Chin and Chapman composition. Big number one of her 2 number ones in the UK. Went nowhere in the US. She's one of these artists, isn't she? An American artist who had no success over there, really. Huge in the UK and in a lot of Europe and in Australia as well, I gather, as well. Everybody, I'm sure, recognised from that famous first line, "This is You're So Vain" by Carly Simon, of course. But what was his scarf? Well, the clue, of course, is in the rhymes. That's why I put the extra line on. Walking onto you watch yourself gavotte. Your scarf, it was apricot. Absolutely. Apricot. There we are. And he sang along to that, as I'm sure you sang along to that and hit your high note here on what is quite obviously, of course, Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and the boy is too young to be singing the blues. Do you know, in 2008, Ben & Jerry released a new flavour to celebrate Elton John? Something was going on at the time, I can't remember. And they called it Goodbye Yellow Brickle Road. There you go. Made of chocolate ice cream, peanut butter cookie dough, butter brickle and white chocolate chunks, apparently. Not a healthy one, I can gather. Right, 16. What about this? Diana Ross's Touch Me in the Morning. And even if you don't know this, come on, we don't have tomorrow. Then just walk away. We don't have tomorrow, but we had yesterday. Of course. Apparently Diana Ross felt this was too hard for her at the time, even though it was a massive hit. And then also, people were quite worried, I gather, that it was too poppy for her. There you go. Never mind. Okay, the Cryptic albums. Come on, look at this. There's outside her house. I love the idea of the Pope living in that little detached there. And good old Cliff and his mansion there. Well, a mansion there behind him. These are houses, and they're all holy. This is Led Zeppelin's Houses of the Holy, of course, in 73. Its famous cover of 2 young children clambering over the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, with multiple pictures of them put over there. Apparently the young boy was drawn to it and taken back years later to put it to rest. There you go. There we are. Also released the day after I was born, but there we go. What about this one? Well, Del Boy, what's he doing? He's selling. What's he selling? He's selling, as you can see, England. Oh, the scale. He's selling England by the pound. The Genesis album. Steve Hackett's favourite Genesis album, apparently. And Mike Rutherford's favourite title of an album. But there we are. Apparently it was a Labour slogan of a new look at Englishness, Genesis said. What about this one? Well, look, it's the time. And what's happening to it? It is fading away. This is Neil Young's live album from this year. Not so well regarded as many of his others there. But it's not bad. I quite like it. And what about this one? Well, we're going to the world of jazz here. This is Herbie Hancock, because what have we got? We've got a bunch of hunters on the side from the Bayeux Tapestry. And what are they hunting? Yes, they are headhunters. As Herbie Hancock had lots of H's there, aren't there? Okay, let's push on. Naming that riff. Right. How do we get on with this? The first one was 20th Century Boy. Remember? Yeah, you got to get that, haven't you? 20th Century Boy there. Right. Number 22 was Sweet. And which one do I choose? We chose Little Willie. Another Chin and Chapman again. And this riff is basically, as you may have noticed, who fans out there, basically but it's the basis of Little Willie, their biggest US hit, by quite some distance. I don't think it was actually ever formally released but it went gold in both the UK and the US. Then, of course, we had Gene Genie after that with that famous riff that we've just been discussing. And finally, this was the hard one, wasn't it? Slade and Squeeze Me, Please Me with their descending. An awful lot of E minor seems to be around in the glam year of 73. Okay, what about this classic album? Well, what have we got there? We got a little bit from the cover in the top left-hand corner. In the top bottom right-hand corner, we've got a little bit from the inside cover, the inside gatefold spread. In the top right, what have we got there? We have a very famous synthesizer. And then we have a quote from the artist himself about it giving his own perspective, the album does, on what's happening in my world, and my people, all people. And from the album, which again go with the fact that the lyrics are particularly significant in this album. What are we looking for? It is, of course, Inner Visions. Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder. As I said, for my money, the best out of 73. That's a bit of the cover, as we said, in the corner there. And that, of course, his famous use of the top, that massive, huge thing there. That's what not only this album, Superstition, was written on. Goodness me, look at this, look at that. What about the next one? Well, a lot further in the left-hand corner, we've got Lagos, because that's where the album was recorded. On the right was 4 of the people who appeared on the famous cover of this album: Michael Parkinson, Kenny Lynch, James Coburn, and Christopher Lee. We have representations of songs: A Jet, A Bluebird, 1985. That's Charlie Chester there, and that is his catchphrase, or a bastardized version of his catchphrase, should we say. Down in the jungle, live in a tent, you don't use money, you pay rent, which is the first line of a song called Mamounia. Drink to me, drink to my health, you know, I can't drink anymore, is the last words of Picasso, from Picasso's last words. And in the left-hand corner, to help you, there's a band, and what are they doing? They're on the run. And it just happens that band is the Beatles, because this is, of course, Band on the Run by Wings, the biggest selling post-Beatles album by some distance. And for many people, use Bands on the Run in Beatle versus Beatle Next. I used Retro Speedway instead, which was the earlier 73 Wings album. And you might have guessed from the way this is framed that, of course, one that went platinum and sold the most was actually Ringo's album. And partly this is because it had contributions by all of the other 3 on it. George and John playing together. They all wrote songs for it, which, you know, makes it by far the best Ringo album, I think, if you listen to it. It was a huge success at the time. So there we go. Not the best album there. For my mind, I'd go Living in a Material. I'd probably put Red Rose Speedway second, Ringo's third, and Ringo fourth. Although it is the best Ringo album. Now, what about the Osmonds? A lot of Osmonds fans out there, I should think. Many, I'm sure, would have thought Long Head Lover from Liverpool being a big #1 hit. But no, the biggest was the 12th of Never by Donny Osmond. That was the biggest hit of 73 for an Osmond. Right, on to the last 2 trivia questions here. Elvis's concert again. Well, why would I ask the question? Unless, of course, it is the US that didn't show it. His home place, they didn't show it because it's clashed with the Super Bowl. And they didn't show it until April after that. They did show it in its entirety in an hour-and-a-half special. But it was broadcast absolutely live, I gather, to Japan and many of the Pacific countries, Korea and the like, then was on a delayed broadcast the next day in most of Europe. But yeah, the US didn't do it for a long time there. And finally, the film version of Jesus Christ Superstar was released this year. And what a great film. Far superior in my mind to the musical itself. Ambitious, sometimes a bit all over the place, but my goodness me, aren't there some voices in there? They really are. Ted Neely as Jesus is quite superb. And Carl Anderson, his name escapes me for a second, was a cracking Judas as well. Okay, I hope you did all right with that. I hope you did well. I thought that was one of the quizzes I enjoyed making the most of. I thought it was nice and varied there. There's another one next week. Please do remember, the reason I'm doing this is at the bottom of the page. I'm trying to raise money for Young Minds UK. I'm trying to do something to support young people who I've worked with for most of my life. Trying to, as a teacher. And I see really that at this particular moment, especially, there's a mental health epidemic in general, but I mean, really, it's a real struggle for young people there at the moment. And Young Minds UK are doing a wonderful job in trying to help. Remember, young people are very susceptible to mental health issues and also to taking extreme action as a response of mental health issues, which is why it's so important that we look after them. So please, anything you can give would be great. We've raised a good amount of money so far, but I've got very high ambitions on what we can raise. Do feel free, please, as well as donating, to subscribe to my channel. Subscribe, get the more attention we get, the more I can potentially raise. And contact me, please. Do let me know. My Twitter handle is just quite simply at Stuart Hoskin. I regularly promote this on here. And if you can get on there and say how much you like it as well and promote it with me, that would be great. How much you enjoyed, please tell me how much you got as well. And of course, any feedback is greatly appreciated. Please like the video. These things will help out, but mostly I just hope you enjoyed. And I will see you with another quiz next week, I hope. Bye-bye.